recording. Good morning and welcome to my favourite time of the week. And I'm very fortunate this week, as part of the Inspiring Leadership series, to have Lieutenant General Robert Baxter, CBE. And Robert has had a fascinating career. We knew each other many years ago when he was the squadron commander of 24 Mobile Brigade Headquarters and Signal Squadron. That's quite a mouthful. But Robert has done a whole range of things, from beginning life as a young Royal Signals officer to finishing as the Master of Signals, but doing a whole variety of fascinating jobs, such as Deputy Chief of Defence Staff for Health, but also the Commandant of the Royal Military College of Science, also being a Chief of Staff of an Armoured Brigade, which is a tough role for anybody, being an instructor at Camberley, at the Staff College. So a range of really interesting things. Now living in the Highlands and still dabbling in many different businesses and certainly technology. Robert, welcome. It's great to have you on the series.
And good to be with you, Jonathan.
Thank you. And tell us a little bit about sort of what you, as you look back and take a view on your career, how would you view it, those different phases of your leadership in your career?
I think they're broadly three chunks. They obviously overlap and segue one into the other. And at the end of it, when I left the service, I almost went back to the beginning again, which is always a nice place to be. But I guess you start off with the follow me phase, where you have a small group of people. They know you, which can be a bad thing, and you know them, which is always an interesting thing. And the tasks are relatively simple. And provided you're not completely stupid and you lead them in a good direction, you say, follow me, and they do tend to follow you. People seem to like to do that.
Yeah.
And that's really simple, and you learn about people. So that's phase one. Phase two, things start to get a little bit bigger, and you have to start to delegate. You have to really start trusting people. That's a bit of an ask sometimes, and it is a bit more. You do this, you do that. You check up on people. You have to start to be structured. You start to think a bit more strategically, I guess. You try and zoom out, take the big picture. And then the final phase, which has in some ways been the most interesting, has been the nudge, persuade phase, where you really aren't directly appointed. In most of one's certainly service career, you are appointed as a leader, commander. You start off with your commission from the Queen that tells you various things you have to do. You're then appointed into a role, and we might come and talk about how you're actually put into a position. You don't create something. It's very different in a startup where you start to select people you work with and so on, which again, very different. But this sort of persuade nudge phase has been very interesting because you really do have to get your head around other people. What is it? What flicks the switches?
Yeah.
So, three phases.
Very, very interesting. And in all these different phases, and now you're working a lot with sort of startups and it is back to the hands-on again. As you think of people who've inspired you during your career and who you've learned from, qualities you've taken and aspired to inspire others, who would be the people you'd talk about?
But broadly two categories. Category one are the people who were interested in the profession of arms, our profession, my profession, who studied it, thought about it, debated it. People like Rupert Smith, Christopher Wallace.
Yeah.
So that's one group of people, who get their head around the profession. There's another group who, and your erstwhile boss was one of these, who trusted you and left you alone.
Yeah. Get
on with things, and that would be dear old John Griffin.
Yeah.
Would be fun. Christopher Wallace again in that category, and a wonderful chap called George Kennedy.
Yes.
Married to Sarah Kennedy of television fame at one stage, and then married the sort of some coffee company heiress. Yeah. But dear old George, or Uncle George as the brigade called him, sort of basically said, let's everybody have a bit of fun. Whatever you can do with helicopters that might be useful, go and have a go. Yeah. And he would balk at nothing. And that sort of person is terrific to work for.
Yeah.
And you always I have tried to emulate some of that by letting people have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Throwing out a challenge that hopefully grips.
And that did strike me when you were working for him. Your squadron, your air mobile squadron, of all the different squadrons in the regiment, had so much more fun and such a sort of can-do attitude. Rather sort of, dare I even say, a little cavalier and just we'll get there in the end, Jonathan. Because you were just getting on and doing the job for the brigade, and your focus was on your client, and it was exactly right. And thinking back to all these different roles that you have had, we all make mistakes. And what was it that, tell us a story of something where you made a mistake and what you learned from it, how that shaped you as a leader and how you, because we got people listening to this who are a whole range of backgrounds, some ex-military, some still in the military, but most are sort of from chairmen, CEOs, board members, all the way down to people who aspire to be good leaders and just at the beginning of their careers, maybe post-university. What did you learn from a story about mistakes, and what would be the tip?
The biggest mistake I think I made was when my judgment of someone proved to be completely false. I got the person wrong. And from that, it flowed a whole bunch of errors. I trusted this particular person, and the sadness is there was somebody else in the organization who I didn't trust at the time, but who I should have trusted.
Yes.
Who was telling me the real stuff, and I trusted this other wretched person. Yeah. And we had a rocky 2 or 3 months, but fortunate. My boss at the time, I think it was Christopher Wallace, they put the whole train set back on the rails. Helped me, the train set back on the rails. And that was part of, I suppose, his overall trust in me, but it was really the failure of judgment. And I think something you can't give up. You always have to be checking. Yeah. Not in a nasty, oppressive way, but you just need to be aware that, sometimes people are very good at putting a mask on, and you don't always see through it. Yeah, so that's a lesson. Watch for masks.
That's right, and it's part of that book. It's about white collar psychopaths, and they're both charming and believable, and tell you what they think you want to hear. And I've been caught out by a few over the years. How about ending in the with a couple of your sort of top tips to leaders at all levels, things that you've practically found useful wisdom that perhaps people have given you or that you've learned?
I think self-awareness and awareness, sort of two little bits. I did some work when we were putting together the commander leadership package at the Staff College. We came across a bunch of people at Ross and Y, run by the ex-training major of 22 SAS, where their sort of motto was know and control yourself before you start trying to lead others. And that really stuck, that if you're not self-aware, so that when you enter the sort of the ecosystem of leadership, you have some idea of how you're going to affect that connected system. Yeah. Self-awareness, and then the wider awareness. It's the people you work with, people you're trying to lead, influence, nudge, whatever you want trying to do. If you don't have awareness to understand that when you are doing something, when you're interacting with their ecosystem, if you don't understand how you're impacting on them, and it is a bit of a try, look, observe, orientate, decide, act, the old OODA loop, that you're that with people. And if you don't do that, you come unstuck quite quickly.
Yeah, great advice. Robert, thank you very much for your time. This has been just the start. We're going to have some more discussions, which we're going to have later on as part of the podcast. But just for the LinkedIn, thank you very much for your time and also your wisdom. And good luck in the Highlands and Islands. And
yes, very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Been a pleasure. A pleasure.